Do me a favor. Could you say senator instead of ma'am?
I love these members that get up and say, read the bill.
What difference at this point does it make?
The whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
We know that the free market is nonsense.
This liberal will be all about socializing, will be about basically taking over and the government running all of your companies.
The time has come for unfiltered, politically incorrect common sense. Welcome to the wild world of Cowboy Logic.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the wild, woolly world of Cowboy Logic for another Tuesday evening. I'm Donna Fiducia, along with Don Neuen, and we want to thank you all for listening. And boy, we're getting some legs, and we're starting to make a little bit of waves too, aren't we? Because it looks like we're pissing some people off.
Looks
Pardon
to be
my
that.
French, which is a good
I'd say
thing,
that's a good thing to say.
Yeah, because God forbid, you actually have any kind of dissenting view. Because we welcome dissenting views on this show. Unfortunately, those who don't agree with us want to shut everybody down, which to me is the anti-liberal. That's just not what the word means.
Well, and what Don is referring to here is we, as you guys all know, our main vehicle for advertising is Facebook. That's the origin of this show, started on Facebook. And this week, when Donna sent her invite out to everyone, which is basically her multi-thousand friends that she has.
Some friendly, not all friendly.
Yeah, obviously there's a couple out there that aren't her friends.
A couple that I used to work with that I'm sure didn't do this, but are very happy to find out what happened.
Well, somebody seemed to think that it was appropriate to list Donna's invite to watch Cowboy Logic as spam. And as a result, you were banned from being able to send your invite out. Now, I was still able to send mine out to my 2,000 friends.
Well, it's just enough. What did they say? We'll do it for 48 hours, just enough to screw you up.
Yeah.
But you know what? Why doesn't Facebook, well, I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it rhetorically. Why doesn't Facebook look into this? Because they don't want to look into this, just like the IRS scandal, just like anything else. If we had Tea Party in our name or anything of that nature, they're not going to like it. If we had green in our name, they probably would have said, no, this spam,
I know nothing, I see nothing, and I say nothing.
Anyhow, so enough with that. Hopefully next week we'll be able to talk to everybody on Facebook enough.
Well, if not, I tell you what, the one thing they can't do is shut us down on the Cowboy Logic Facebook page, okay, which you and I both have access to. And I can send out, or Donna can send out an invite on that page, but in order to get it, you have to like the page. And I think we're up around 300 at this point that people that like that page.
Yeah, but have like 4,000 followers on Facebook.
Yeah, well, you're popular, and I sit here and be quiet.
Folks from Fox. So let me ask you this, folks. We really need a new Abbott and Costello, Laurel and Hardy. There they were. On the Jersey Shore. And this is sacrilegious to me. I'm sorry. Memorial
What is it, the fat
Day,
lady and the skinny guy?
Will you stop? Memorial Day, for those of you who heard me on WNEW-FM years ago, we had so much fun. It was the unofficial start of summer in New Jersey because it's still pretty darn cold. Although there was one year where I think it was close to 75 degrees and a lot of people went swimming in that freezing cold Atlantic Ocean. But every Friday, Memorial Day, we used to pretty much take over the boardwalk in front of the casino right there where President Obama and Governor Christie were today. And we had tens of thousands of people. We had, we broadcasted live. We had acts. Oh, gosh, we had Joan Jett. We had Robert Cray. We had some amazing acts every year. And tens of thousands of kids would cut school. And it got to the point where the mayor of Asbury Park wouldn't let us do it anymore because he said too many kids cut in school, which was a joke. In fact, my producer at Fox told me he was so thrilled to work with me when I first started because he was one of those kids who used to cut school.
That made you feel youthful, didn't it?
Yeah, it really made me feel old. But anyhow, to me, this is sacrilegious to see, I'm sorry, Laurel and Hardy up there, touting how great the Jersey Shore is. People I've spoken to, now I admit, I am a New Jerseyan, but I have not been to the shore since Superstorm Sandy. But everybody I know that's been down there, and some people I know still live there, say it's still horrible. It's just horrible. And the thing is, they've tried to fix the boardwalk. It's like Germany after the war. On the east side of Berlin, you see these buildings, but then you go past those buildings and there's nothing but crap. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what's happening. They've fixed up the boardwalk and they say, oh, look how great this is. Meanwhile, you still got people there that don't have homes, that, everything's up in the air as far as their businesses. They're not sure what's going on, and they're just yucking it up. So someone said
there was one point where there was a silhouette shot of Obama and Christie looking out over the ocean. The sun was cascading down onto them, and the shot was from behind. And I thought I was backstage at a Winona Naomi Judd concert.
Until one said, who's on first? And the other one said, I don't know, third base.
No, but we do know that the boardwalk has been built strong enough to support Chris Christie's weight.
Will you stop? He's slimming down now, though. But the point is...
Whoops, a monkey just flew out of my butt.
But the point is, this is totally political. They did have a quote-unquote journalist there say to Chris Christie, don't you think this is political? And he goes, this is not a time to be political. Whether you're from the left or from the right, this is not a time to be political. Hello? This is all it is political. This is all this guy does. This is all Obama does, is run for office. Okay? He's still running for office, and he's in his second term. He still hasn't disbanded his re-election campaign. The point is, this is all political. He's in an extremely blue state. He knows he's in an extremely blue state, and he has to court the left vote. And that's what he's doing. At this point, I don't understand why he just doesn't switch parties. Same with Bloomberg. You're going to say Bloomberg's a Republican? I mean, if you're going to be Republican light, just switch parties. Yeah. There is no difference. And that is exactly why Obama won. And I blame the Republican Party for this. And I think Obama has a fantastic re-election campaign that he ran last time around. And he knows it because he's pretty much castrated the Republican Party, in my humble opinion.
Well, how else can you perform as if you'd eaten a bag of Quaaludes during the second debate and still win the election?
First debate. That was the first one.
Was that the first one?
Yeah, where he was horrible. And then he breezed through the second and third. So you had to know that had to be anything close, they were going to say he won. But the first one was so bad, even MSNBC was afraid to say anything. But the whole point is, this whole thing with the boardwalk and everything else, did he go to Staten Island? Did he go to sections of Queens? Did he go to Breezy Point? I don't think so. Has Obama ever been to Breezy Point? I mean, it's gone. And there's just, the past and the double standard is mind-boggling at this point to me. Mm-hmm. And the Kool-Aid drinking of the mainstream media. But that is, anyhow. And then he said, I played the frog bog. Don's looking at me going, okay, what the hell is that? If you lived on the Jersey Shore, you know what the frog bog is, or the ring toss.
I thought it was French quicksand.
No. But it was great to hear that, I'll be honest with you, as somebody who kind of misses the Jersey Shore. I miss those darn frog bogs in those
What was the big thing that
tosses.
Rico sent you? If Rico's listening, how you doing there, my liberal brother?
Oh, I don't remember.
He sent you the
he wants to go to a Springsteen concert with me.
The 500 songs.
The Firecracker 500 from WNEW-FM. Gee, Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven was number one. Never would have known that. I don't remember what year it was, but
that song is number one, but it's the one song that nobody wants to hear some guy in a guitar store play when he's trying out a guitar.
No, that's true. But yeah, the Firecracker 500 also was something that we had, that we played around July 4th. We'd start I guess on the 2nd almost, and ended on July 4th at one point. And it was, people would call in to WNEW-FM and basically, vote for what songs they thought were the best, and Stairway to Heaven was always number one. But it was great to see that as well, along with the 77 WABC Rewind that they had this past weekend with a bunch of old disc jockeys like Cousin Brucey and the like. Which Scott Muni.
Am I the only one that has no idea what she's talking about?
Probably not.
Okay.
If you've lived any time in the New York area, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Especially Frog Bog and Ring Toss. Frog
Bog. French quicksand.
All right, speaking of President Obama, and Eric Holder, how could we forget? Let's focus on these scandals here, because that's the whole idea. We're trying to get you away from immigration reform.
I know nothing, I see nothing, and I say nothing.
There was a 1917 espionage law that targeted journalists during World War I. When the Germans were suspected of espionage, it was enacted by, you guessed it, Woodrow Wilson, to try to control journalists. But even Woodrow Wilson didn't go this far. But apparently that is what Eric Holder was listing to try to go after James Rosen of Fox News when he was looking for a warrant, actually, to go after James Rosen. And there are reports also now that Mr. Holder went judge shopping. In other words, he couldn't find a judge to give him the subpoena that he wanted, or the warrant that he wanted to go after James Rosen. So he went to a couple other judges, and he finally got one, which isn't going to really be all that hard to do. A liberal judge that was willing to give him the piece of paper that he needed to make this whole thing legal. But he didn't just go to one judge. He went to a couple before he finally got the one judge to, and this is a report thereof, but it sounds like it's been kind of verified. Two documents apparently show that two judges... He went to
selectajudge.com, I think.
I don't know. But a new document shows that two judges separately declared that the Justice Department was required to notify Rosen of the search warrant, even if the notification came after a delay. Otherwise, the subscriber, therefore, will never know, by being provided a copy of the warrant, for example, that the government secured a warrant and searched the contents of his or her email account. This is a Judge John M. Facciola. He wrote in an opinion rejecting the Obama administration's argument. Anyhow, apparently this goes on to explain that he didn't get what he wanted from the first couple of judges he talked to. He finally did. So on May 15th, under oath, Eric Holder denied it. He said he knows nothing about it. He signed off on the warrant on May 15th. Under oath. He had signed off on it. Apparently, under oath, he said that he did not, and he didn't know anything. He knew nothing about any of this. So
I know nothing, I see nothing, and I say nothing.
Anyhow, so this could be the downfall of Eric Holder, because at this point, I don't see how you're going to get away with this if the mainstream media continues to hold their feet to the fire, which is questionable at this point.
Yeah.
But I mean, I really do feel that if the media had done its job, we'd know all about this. We would have known about this last summer.
Exactly. And then everybody could have been voting with a certain degree of education.
Right.
Not that it would have changed anything.
No. I don't think it would have, quite frankly, because I don't think Romney ran a good campaign. I think he would have been a great president.
Well,
he didn't have the fire in his belly.
I always said that Romney was the guy that lost to the guy that lost last time.
Yeah, I know. And speaking of the guy who lost, the guy that lost, Bob Dole, just go away. Bob Dole says the Republican Party.
I'm Bob Dole.
Yeah, really. Speaks about himself in the third party.
It's like Garth Brooks.
He should be the third party. Go create your third party. I don't understand why anybody gives. That's like giving credence, I'm sorry, to John McCain. As long as John McCain says what the left wants to hear, John McCain's okay.
Well, he was hopping around in Syria and Turkey this week.
How did you spend your Memorial Day, John McCain? I'm talking to the Syrian rebels secretly. What the heck is he thinking? I constantly get barraged from the left, people on my Facebook page, about how we have 2 unfunded wars and how dare we throw out a leader of a country. Yet they'll be the first to say we need to go into Syria. They were the first to say we have to go to Somalia. I don't think those
Why
two
do they
unfunded...
bitch about unfunded wars, but they don't complain about unfunded liabilities?
We're still we're still in those 2 unfunded wars, and a few more. And quite frankly, I didn't agree with the first 2 either. That's the only thing we agree on. But it's been 5 years. This is Obama's war now. It is not George Bush's war any longer. Sorry. Gitmo, same thing. Gitmo's still open, but all of a sudden now we're talking about closing Gitmo because we have to create a diversion again.
Right.
So everybody can know nothing about what's going on with the other scandals, Benghazi, the IRS, and what have you. I've lost track. I'm getting frustrated with all this.
I have not lost track.
Yeah, I'm getting pretty frustrated at all this. Then you go on Drudge and you see this picture of Chris Christie and Obama in front of the casino in Asbury Park. I gotta laugh. I kind of wish I was there, though. I miss it. I miss it on Memorial Day. Even though it was like 50 degrees.
Hey, speaking of Memorial Day, I need to do a carrytheload.org update.
Yes, they did great.
$1.2 million was raised by carrytheload.org.
Hey.
And that goes to the families of the fallen military, fire, and police. 1.2 million. These guys walked over 2,000 miles, over 27 days, I believe, is what it took them to
started at
to
West
walk.
Point.
That's right. And we are just so absolutely proud of these guys. Donna and I were going to try to go to Dallas this last weekend. We couldn't pull it together quickly enough because we wanted to be in Dallas for this this big shindig that they had on Sunday. But next year, we will start talking about Carry the Load well in advance. We'll make sure that you know where the stopping points are. And I really urge you to take part in this. That was, what did it take us to walk those? It was about 3 miles is what we walked.
I'll tell you, though, I'm starting to feel old. I felt that. I normally could just get out there, and the next day I was sore. And these guys are walking from West Point. Well, of course, they're in shape, but they're walking from West Point to Dallas, and here I am, doing 3 miles and feeling sore. And you humped the
I carried the fire hose for the
fire hose
SEALs.
all the way down.
Yep.
That entire time.
In cowboy boots.
Yep.
In Wranglers.
Yep. And
packing a 9
hat.
mm. Yeah, and I had a cowboy hat on, but a bunch of them did. But I am just so thrilled that they raised $1.2 million for these families.
What a great group of people.
It's just awesome, and the people were phenomenal. Wes Van Dyke, John Jones, the whole crowd that we dealt with on this was phenomenal. So please go to carrytheload.org. It's over for this year, but starting in June, they are planning for next year's walk.
Do you have pictures of that bus on the Star Coaches website? You need to.
I'm sure we do. We've got it on the Star Coaches Facebook site.
You need to put it on the website. That has to be one of the prettiest wraps that Adnormous Graphics ever did. It is just awesome.
Mark Rowe with Adnormous Graphics. If he is listening,
he
does
there.
Phenomenal work. And that's the beauty of Cowboy Logic Radio.
We can plug whoever
we can
want.
say whatever we want.
But you know what's great? See, people are wondering, how do you do this wrap? They're vinyl. They're vinyl wraps they put on the bus, and they can just peel them right off. But you could do that to your car if you want to change the color of your car.
We did it to my son's car.
We did it to the old Mercedes. It looks like a brand new paint job. Never have to wash or wax it if you don't want to, and it never fades for 10 years.
Now, Mark Rowe does not necessarily like doing cars.
Well, that's okay.
Please don't go to Mark Rowe to have your car wrapped.
But if you got a 45-foot Prevost H3 or XL2, please bring it to Enormous. No, the Carry the Load wrap was just beautiful. Really was beautiful. Anyhow.
Now, let's get into a little bit of what's going on with these scandals, because all we're hearing from the left is...
What difference does it make?
Yeah, that. And that, these scandals compared to what's going on and what's gone on in the past is nothing. It's no big deal. The You know, you bring up Benghazi and you talk about, you know, the ambassador being killed. And they go, oh, well, we had all these. Here's the list of all the embassies that have been attacked in the past. Mm-hmm. You know, at what point is a liberal, who I've got a lot of great liberal friends that I respect a great deal, one of which is going to be on the show tonight. At what point is a liberal going to stand up and go, hey, you know what? This is bullshit. And this is not
You cursed.
Right.
You said one of the 7 dirty words you can't say on the radio.
I'm half of the radio show.
Okay.
I can say bullshit if I want to. There, I said it.
There, I said it. But yeah, I agree.
At what point are you just going to stand up and have the courage to say, you know what, guys, this is wrong.
See,
this is absolutely wrong. I did that with George Bush.
I almost
in 2004.
wish this was a Republican, because I would man up and say the same thing, or woman up in this case. I would blame Bush. I would blame Obama if he were a Republican. I almost wish he was a Republican so we could at least expose how ridiculous the mainstream media is. But see, unfortunately, my former colleagues vote en masse on the Democrat side. I would say 86 to 95%, something like that. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to. You could bet your bottom dollar that if this were a Republican in office, he never would have gotten reelected. Because these I mean, if you're going to make, you know, total mountains out of molehills like the Valerie Plame thing, who said, oh, she was exposed and, threatened her life and everything, when this woman was not an undercover agent and used to go around to parties in Washington, D.C. telling everybody she worked for the CIA. And the big mountain out of a molehill they made with that. Could you imagine? I mean, compare that to every scandal, really, that's plagued this White House. I mean, the Gibson guitar thing, the Fast and Furious, years ago. Would have been enough.
That started under the Bush administration.
Bull crap. Bull crap.
Fast and Furious started under the Bush administration.
Well, so did Department of Homeland Security, too. But this is Bush on steroids. You know, we didn't fear the Department of Homeland Security. We do now. Okay?
Yeah.
I don't feel like getting hit with a hollow point. You can bet your bottom dollar that that's what that shit's for. Sorry.
Ooh.
I shouldn't have said that either. That's the first time I've ever cursed on the air. 26 years. I really is. I gotta tell you, the first time. I guess I'm too relaxed. Oh boy.
Unfiltered.
Unfiltered. Politically incorrect.
Common sense.
I'm not gonna make a habit of doing that, and I really do have
Well, I do make a habit of doing it.
I have a vocabulary like a truck driver off the air, so I'm surprised I haven't slipped
or a
before.
Navy SEAL.
Yeah, it's true. Anyhow, so John McCain goes over and talks to the rebels, and here we are, trying to tell everybody that Bashir Assad has to go. Can I say something? He's no great shakes, obviously. And neither was, what's his face in Egypt.
No great shakes.
No great shakes.
No great
I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. But Christians can still practice their faith, I believe, in Syria. I'm sure there's not too many of them there. They could in Egypt before. They can't now. In fact, they're being crucified in Egypt. Right in Tahrir Square, still. Nobody talks about that. Sharia law is being enforced in Egypt. So is this what you want totally for the entire Middle East and North Africa? It seems to be that is what this administration wants. And that brings me to look who's in the White House. The Muslim Brotherhood, by the way, has met more with President Obama than he did with his entire Jobs Council. In fact, he finally disbanded the Jobs Council because he never met with him. But the Muslim Brotherhood are regulars at the White House. And, you judge people by the company they keep. This is not a slam against the Muslim religion. This is a slam against radical Islam, okay? Because if you're a president of the United States, I want to know why you have an Assistant Secretary for Policy Development is a man named Arif Ali Khan. This is for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Okay? We have a guy in charge of Homeland Security that it belongs to the Muslim Brotherhood. Will somebody tell me what sense that makes after 9/11?
Well, and he's the Assistant Secretary for the Policy Development.
Right.
No wonder these policies completely ignore the term terrorist.
Yeah, it's
the
workplace
term
violence.
Radical jihadist.
Muhammad El-Abiari, Homeland Security Advisor. Rashad Hussain, Special Envoy to the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Conference. Islam El-Marat. I mean, you'd think that the Muslims in general are a major part of our population, and they're not. This is, and it's, again, I want to know why this is such a disproportionate situation here for our homeland security.
I want to hear you pronounce the rest of these names.
Salam al-Mariyati, Obama advisor, founder of Muslim Public Affairs Council, and its current executive director. Imam Mohammed Majid, Obama's Sharia czar, Islamic Society of North America. Why are we even considering Sharia in the United States? If you don't know what Sharia law is, you better wake up, okay, and find out, especially if you're a woman and especially if you're gay, okay, because then you're in big-time trouble. Yep. Ibu Patel, Advisory Council on Faith-Based Neighborhood Partnerships. I mean, it really
Doesn't
is.
that guy own all of the Days Inns?
Stop.
Ibu Patel.
Oh, gosh. It's not, again, a slam on Muslims as a religion. It is a slam on why this president surrounds himself with radical Islam. This is the Muslim Brotherhood. This is why Eric Holder did not go after the Muslim Brotherhood when they intimidated voters in Philadelphia first time around.
Are you talking about the, not the Muslim
New Black
Brotherhood?
Panther Party? Yeah. Same thing in this case.
Well,
it's
similar
really,
but different.
But it's very scary to think what is forming this president's thinking. And don't tell me that, you know, what you grew up in, what you grew up as doesn't matter. Because that does form, you know, it does form your opinions in adulthood for anybody. It's the same thing with animals. You get a puppy, you train them right in the beginning, they're going to have that way of thinking or that way of behaving as they grow up. So don't try to tell me that it's workplace violence when you shoot 13 Marines and yell Allah Akbar. Don't tell me that this guy, you know, that yelled Allah Akbar and chopped off a guy's head in Britain was, you know, just, you know, a lunatic.
Yeah,
And they still downplay that.
Troubled guy.
They're still downplaying that. They still don't say that he yelled Allah Akbar before he chopped off this poor guy in broad daylight and beheaded him. Yes, that's right. He was beheaded. Nobody wants to talk about that.
He dissected him.
It doesn't sound nice. And then he gets up there and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry all the women had to see that." Well, then don't do it. It's mind-boggling. And then you got John McCain. John McCain needs to just go away. They really ought to have forced retirement. And Bob Dole, take him with you, please.
I'm Bob Dole.
At least Bob Dole's not in office anymore. Eyelid lift for Medicare patients cost taxpayers millions. Hey, I got something to look forward to in retirement. I'd like to have my eyes done. Rand Paul says Obamacare diagnostic codes are going to list turtle injuries and walking into lamp posts.
Well, here's the thing. Currently, there's 18,000 diagnostic codes that need to be keyed in. And when you went up and spent some time with Dr. Tina,
yes,
you know about these codes. You got to enter them in if something, you know, for every procedure and every little thing that happens, you got to enter this code in. And there's 18,000 of them.
And you put the wrong one in, you got to resend it back and recode it again.
Well, under Obamacare, there's going to be 140,000 codes.
See, this is the whole thing. They want to confuse. They want to cause chaos. Because what's going to happen is they're going to say, "Oh, look, just let the government run it then. I can't be bothered." That's the whole thing. I heard on earlier, I forget where I heard it. A caller was saying into a talk show host I was listening to, saying that he is he's a group. I think he's a dentist or a doctor or something, and they have a group, healthcare for all these doctors, and their company is telling them that they are going to drop them. The company, their healthcare company, is saying we're no longer going to provide healthcare for you. Now, if you have a pre-existing condition and your company drops you, then you're really in trouble. It's one thing if you're going to try to pay for it with a pre-existing condition, and once you're in some sort of health care plan, that you can keep the plan you want, even though it's probably going to cost you twice as much. But these are actual companies that are calling their clients and saying we're going to have to drop you for Obamacare.
I just talked to a driver today that's going to be driving with us, and he's a former truck driver with a very large trucking company, 4,000 drivers. Mm-hmm. They have dropped all of their insurance.
Yeah. So they'd
rather pay the penalty.
Well, what's going to happen is, you got to read between the lines, and everybody.
Don, you're overreacting.
Yeah. Okay. So Obama says, yes, you can keep your health care plan, but he doesn't say if you want to pay twice as much, or, what happens if your health care plan drops you.
I'm just glad to know that if I walk into a lamppost, I'm covered.
This is one of the new codes. Okay. So just be aware that if you decide to have a drink or two, you will be covered if you walk into a lamppost.
Unless you've had a drink or two.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to go through some of these diagnostic codes when we come back. Our phone number is 917-675-3200. Real quick, though, Don, why don't you say who we have coming up this hour?
We're going to have the first Cowboy Logic Roundtable. We're going to have the drummer from the band 12 Stones, A.J. Gaynor. We're going to have from blackmanthinking.com, Stan Levy. And we are going to have our token liberal.
And he likes being called that.
That's right. Token liberal and all-around great dude from Connecticut. We're going to have John Bergquist on here. We're going to have all three of them at the same time when we come back from the break. And we're going to have a round table. You're welcome to call in, or you can just sit back and listen to us. Donna says that on talk radio shows, most people just sit and listen. I never was one of those kind of people. I would sit there and call in and usually piss off the host a little bit. But these three guys are going to join us. We're going to be back in about 7 or 8 minutes. And then we're going to have the first Cowboy Logic.
Hi, my name is David Huddleston. I'm a father and a farmer and a red-blooded, meat-eating taxpayer, and I listen to Cowboy Logic Radio.
Some of my friends drive fancy cars, love symphonies and modern art, and they wouldn't be caught dead without a manicure. Plan their lives around a country club, golf lessons, Sunday brunch, collect gossip and antique furniture. Well, I drive a truck and wear blue jeans, and my idea of a social scene, smoking barbecue on an outdoor pit. Am I too square for your circle of friends? Too down to earth for the world you're living in. I like a rodeo, a do-si-do, the Andy Griffith TV show, homemade wine leaders off the vine, baseball, apple pie. Am I too square for your circle of friends?
Good old country boy Andrew Huddleston here, and I live in flyover country. I listen to Cowboy Logic Radio, and I also support PETA, people eating tasty animals.
Out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
You're listening to Cowboy Logic Radio.
Hey everybody, this is Stan Levy, also known as the Black Man Thinking out here in California. When I'm not dealing with the friends of Governor Moonbeam out here, I tune into Cowboy Logic. Hope you do too.
You have reached Speaker of the House John Boehner's office. Please hold, and your call will be answered in the order received. We are experiencing heavy call traffic. If you'd like to hear information regarding fiscal issues, job creation, and the looming sequester, please press 1. If you're calling on healthcare issues or energy, press 2. If your call is in regards to foreign policy or gun legislation, press 3. To leave your comments regarding any House issue, please press 4 or stay on the line for a speaker representative.
Don't you just wish you could do that to the turds in Congress?
You're listening to Cowboy Logic Radio.
Hi, my name is David Huddleston. I'm a father and a farmer and a red-blooded meat-eating taxpayer, and I listen to Cowboy Logic Radio.
Some of my friends drive fancy cars, love symphonies and modern art, and they wouldn't be caught dead without a manicure. Plan their lives around a country club, golf lessons, Sunday brunch, collect gossip and antique furniture. Well, I drive a truck and wear blue jeans, and my idea of a social scene is smoking barbecue on an outdoor kid. Am I too squared for your circle of friends? Too down to earth for the world you're living in. I like a rodeo, a do-si-do, the Andy Griffith TV show, homemade wine leaders off the vine, baseball, apple pie. Am I too squared for your circle of friends?
Good old country boy Andrew Huddleston here, and I live in flyover country. I listen to Cowboy Logic Radio, and I also support PETA, people eating tasty animals.
Mr. Miller, you're the commissioner. Who is responsible? You conducted the investigation. Who was responsible?
I don't have that name, sir. I tell you.
Why don't you have the name?
That I was originally.
Have you asked anybody?
Yes, I asked.
Who did you ask?
I asked.
You don't have that name either.
I'll be glad to provide those names.
Let him answer the question.
Mr. Levin, it's my time.
Washington State's time.
Who did you ask?
I asked the senior technical advisor.
And what's the senior technical advisor's name?
Nancy Marks.
And what did Nancy tell you? Who's responsible?
That I don't remember, to be honest with you.
You don't remember again?
I know nothing, I see nothing, and I say nothing.
Hi, this is John Boehner. Thanks for calling my office. I appreciate hearing your thoughts, and I hope you'll leave a message so I can listen to your ideas and concerns. Thanks for taking an active role in your government and for taking the time to call.
The Cowboy Logic phone lines are now open. Give us a call at 917-675-3200. That's 917-675-3200.
Okay, so we know you don't necessarily want to talk to Don Neuen, but we know you want to talk to Donna Fiducia, and you can. Call 917-675-3200. And you'll get to talk to Donna Fiducia, and Don Neuen will sit there and wait patiently.
You're listening to Cowboy Logic Radio.
My name is Isabel. I'm from the beautiful city of Torrance, California, and I listen to Cowboy Logic Radio.
Hey, this is Nick Polizzo's Captain Conservative from Low Tar Radio, and you are listening to Cowboy Logic Radio on the American Pride Network.
The Cowboy Logic phone lines are now open. Give us a call at 917-675-3200. That's 917-675-3200. And liberals, we feel your pain, so we created a special number just for you. And it's a California area code. How appropriate. 310-299-2899 is our liberal helpline. Liberals, give us a call too. We're open-minded here on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Don't you just wish you could do that to the turds in Congress?
You know, do me a favor. Could you say senator instead of ma'am?
I love these members that get up and say, read the bill.
What difference at this point does it make?
The whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
We know that the free market is nonsense.
This liberal will be all about socializing, will be about basically taking over and the government running all of your companies.
The time has come for unfiltered, politically incorrect common sense. Welcome to the wild world of Cowboy Logic. And we are back. I want to bring in three super guys. We've got, and I'm going to do this in reverse order from the way I had it so that we do not make John Bergquist be the last, despite the fact that his name was the longest, and that's why I did it that way.
No, because he's the token liberal.
No.
We're going to make him go first.
No. We have, as our liberal correspondent, I think that sounds better than token liberal. Come on.
I like token liberal.
Well, so does John. I asked him about that today.
It's an honor, John, to be the token liberal. I'm sorry.
We're going to bring these guys in, and we've got John Bergquist, our liberal correspondent. We've got A.J. Gaynor, a rock star, and we've got, I guess if Obama had a son, this might be what he would look like.
It would be a nightmare.
And that would be Stan Levy. Hey, Stan, I do have a question for you, though. Do you have a son?
Yes, I do.
Does he look like Trayvon Martin?
You stop.
No.
We are equal opportunity offenders here.
But you know what? They're saying actually with that Trayvon Martin case, the judge actually blocked a lot of that information from the case. Like it has nothing to do with.
Too bad we didn't have Eric Holder on this. He could have gotten those emails.
Yeah,
and,
really.
We'd had the Justice Department behind this. We'd have been able to get those Trayvon Martin emails.
Hey, Stan,
anyway,
real quick, though.
Welcome, guys. Welcome,
Yes.
all three of you.
Hey, Stan, I just want to ask is it Black Man Thinking with a G or Thinkin, THINKIN.com? Okay, so it's blackmanthinkin.com. And you need to check it out, guys. It's awesome. Stan is wonderful, and he's so knowledgeable, really, about so many different things, especially when it comes to the Constitution. And, John, your claim to fame, and besides being our token liberal, is...
liberal correspondent.
Oh, whatever. But...
You're darn right it does.
No,
so
I like token liberal. Has you live up in the Sandy Hook, Connecticut area, where that terrible tragedy occurred, and that's how we initially started talking to you. But as we started talking more and more, obviously you're very open-minded, and that's I'm telling you, I really could care less what somebody's political thoughts are, but at least be open-minded and listen to both sides, and therefore, so we said to John, we're going to keep you on here, and hopefully you're feeling a little better. I know you did know the shooter's mother somewhat, and that was very difficult for you back then, and it's great to have you on again here, John Bergquist. And A.J. Gaynor up there in North Dakota, where there's only 3% unemployment. Are you still freezing your butt off, or is it too hot
There's
now?
only 3% of the days throughout the year that's above 40.
I can't believe you have a growing season up there. Then you'll have the first frost.
That's when the first frost went. There's frost on the pumpkin.
Well, hey guys, first of all, let's talk about this Obamacare. I'm not sure how you're into this, but this does scare me, and it's just the point. I don't know if any of you have private health care insurance. It's obviously a way to put things to get people really off private insurance and into the single payer, whether that's what Obamacare was right off the bat, or whether it's something that's going to happen through attrition, which doesn't matter. The end result is the same. But what Senator Rand Paul said today it just blows my mind. We're talking about 140,000 codes additional. I mean, there was 18,000 to begin with of diagnostic codes, which is bad enough. But injuries from animals account for now 312 of these new codes, 72 of them coming from just birds. 9 new codes are for injuries from the macaw. And have any of you been injured by a macaw? Damn. All right.
How about just been injured by a bird?
Okay, 2...
But did you race to the hospital?
Mine used to chew on my ear. I had 2 peach-faced parrots that used to chew on my ear when they sat on my shoulder. And they hurt.
Did you go to the hospital?
No, those suckers hurt, though. They can bite. 2 new codes also for injuries from a turtle. Any of you guys ever been injured by a turtle? No. Damn. I mean, Obamacare just thinks of everything. There's just no stone left.
Have you guys ever walked into a lamppost and needed to seek medical attention because of doing it?
Well, that does depend on how fine the woman was.
Stan, I'm sure you have walked into a lamppost while looking at a fine woman. Having said that, was there a need for medical attention?
examinations are never pretty, so you just kind of suck that up. But,
yeah, who wants to admit to this? Except you on internet radio now.
I didn't say what I want you guys. I just said it did. You know.
And AJ, they don't even have lampposts in North Dakota, do they?
They're rare.
Do they have electricity in North Dakota?
No kidding. It's sparsely populated, but technology is creeping this way. We do have the ability to connect to the internet to listen to Cowboy Logic Radio.
There you go. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. John, what's happening in your world lately up there in liberal Connecticut?
With regard to lampposts?
With regard to just what's going on with the administration in general. People happy with it? People starting to wake up to the possibility that maybe Obamacare isn't what they thought it was all cracked up to be? What's happening up in Connecticut, which, of course, now has the toughest gun control next to Chicago as well.
Well, as you know, I'm in favor of gun control that was passed here in Connecticut. I suppose I'm a little biased from Newtown, knowing someone who was a victim of gun violence. So I do support that. I know that there are very different views about that, and that's fine. It's a conversation we need to have. Other than that, as far as Obamacare goes, I haven't heard a lot. People aren't really talking about it, but I know I personally support it. Anything that increases someone's access to medical care is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what they tell you is going to happen. It's quite the opposite already, because people are losing their health care. But that is the problem. See, to me, it's getting to the point where when something finally gets implemented is when everybody wakes up. And at that point, it might very well be too late. I mean, if all of a sudden you're going to find out that your employer is going to say, okay, bye-bye, you're out of here. I'm not going to pay for health care. Now you've got to shell out, $3,000 or $5,000 a year or more, or you don't have any coverage whatsoever. Then what happens? And the immigration bill. The immigration, they keep trying to tell you it's not going to put anybody else on any kind of health care, which is totally a lie, quite frankly. That's exactly what it is. You're talking another 30 million people. This is just a train wreck waiting to happen, in my opinion. You guys feel free to chime in.
I don't know if it's on record on the census, but I don't have any.
Breaking up.
Yeah, is that John? Is that John responding?
I think it's AJ.
I'm here, AJ. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cellular service in North Dakota is faulting.
That's right. How about
you just
now?
said it was fine.
Much better.
All right, go ahead.
Very good. Yeah, and I'm sitting still, too. I'm really trying not to move. I'm one of those who doesn't have coverage. I have no health insurance, not through work, and I'm not able to afford it on my own. And I still come down on the side of being against Obamacare. And the best way I think there has been a change and a shift in the views of what our health care is there for. And I think that when I was young, born in 75, coming up through the 80s, and my grandparents born in the 20s, my grandfather, for example, cutting wood, had a chainsaw kick up into his chest and took care of one of his ribs, and just pretty bad injury. But he put the chainsaw in its case, he got the dogs and put them in the truck, and he drove himself calmly to his house and had his wife calmly drive him to the emergency room, and there was no panic. And there was never panic in any of those men, regardless of what took place. And I think what we see today is the slightest sniffle or the hangnail or the wrinkle or the unattractive bosom, all of it, there should be a remedy, and we shouldn't have to pay for it. And we see it when we watch the commercials for whatever the new drug is. Take this drug and feel better, but it also might cause cancer and heart attacks and sometimes fatalities. But just talk to your doctor, because whatever the slightest problem is, you should go and have it looked at. And the mentality that I grew up with was, unless there's an emergency and there's something severe, you simply take care of whatever the contusion or laceration or fever is with lots of food or methylate or a Band-Aid, and you suck it up. And it's too late. The argument doesn't even work anymore because there are too many people, and it's become too much of an emotional issue to deny children health care and to deny women health care and to deny elderly health care. And it's all nonsense, but it plays on people's emotions. And that to me is the whole reason why someone who already accepts Obamacare won't have an opportunity to find some new fault with it, because to them it's a right, where to me it's simply a privilege.
Well, once you have it, you're not going to be able to get off it unless you're healthy. Then you might be able to shop around. God forbid something happens to you. It's going to be very difficult. Also,
well,
did you guys...
Who decides what the definition of healthy is?
Well, that's true. And that's the whole thing. If the government's going to decide it, it's not going to be called a death panel, but it's essentially going to leave an IRS agent deciding whether or not you get any kind of treatment. I mean, and the thing is, one size fits all. How ridiculous is that? And a woman in her 60s isn't going to need birth control, okay? Or right. Any kind of thing of that nature. So what you're doing is you're spending an exorbitant amount of money for no reason.
Hey, John, let me ask Stan, hold on one second. John,
sure.
If I recall, you told me that you did not have health care. Am I correct?
That's correct. I'm in the process of shopping around. I've been for some time. I don't have health care through my work, so it's something that I'm looking for. Yep.
How do you feel about the fact that if you do not find health insurance, that you will be taxed, and I believe is it $3,000?
I think something like that.
That you will have a tax imposed on your income tax form for not having it.
Well, I think it's good incentive to have it. I think it's something that people should have. And if there are more options under Obamacare that are lower cost, that's something that I would be interested in looking at. When people drive a car, you have to have car insurance. So I don't. I think health
but that's
insurance
not the
is very
government.
important.
That's private companies. It's not the government giving you that car insurance.
But you have to have it. I mean, if
that's
they
fine. But what has the government ever done that's going to be cheaper?
Well, my question would be this:
or more efficient.
You say you've been shopping around, and that you're hoping that what's going to happen is that the government is going to be able to provide something that would be more affordable maybe than what you're seeing, right?
That's correct. I want to see what's available.
What have you seen from the government?
Well, I haven't looked at, anything of that sort yet. I mean, I haven't gotten into it, all that much.
Well, you got 7 months.
What is the situation? I'm not quite sure. Maybe you guys can shed some light on this. I believe there's a lengthy tax form that you have to fill out with your tax form at the end of this year that pertains to health care that I think is something like 15 to 20 pages. So the government...
I think they've dropped it to 7 or 8.
Big deal. But the point is the government is going to be asking you about your health history now when you send in your tax return. Because this is the IRS that's going to be looking this over. The same IRS, by the way, that targets certain groups and certain other groups.
Stan, I cut you off. What were you going to say, buddy?
Well, the only thing is, I listen to this and it just gets to me. I'm like, we're focusing on the wrong thing. With all respect to John, driving is not a privilege; it's a right. If the states want to regulate what you can do to exercise a privilege, that's fine. No one has a right to be healthy. No one has a right to that, and especially no one has a right to that at the expense of someone else against their will. That's just ridiculous. The other thing is, we keep talking about Obamacare as though it has anything to do with health care. This is not about health care. It never has been about health care. Health insurance and health care is the number one way that the political left uses to gain control of the rights of the people. And guess what? This is look what it has already done. It has affected employment. Oh, really? But I thought it was about health care. Originally, we even had student loans tied up in this thing, but that it's a whole bunch of other stuff. We keep focusing on what I think is the wrong thing, and that is the design of the left. They want government to control the people. If they can make us think it's about other issues like guns, like health insurance, like any of that, and at the same time we are not simply saying what we want is a government that does not tell us what to do, period. It's not about how they do it. It's the fact that they're trying to do anything like this at all. Why is the federal government telling me that I must do anything and how I should do anything? And I listen to
the way. Go ahead.
And listen to come with the argument is that everybody should have health insurance. Why? Why should everybody?
That's the thing. Is
if you want to deal with the cost, if you want to deal with the cost, you take routine health care off of an insurance business model. You have an insurance business model to keep people from being hurt by unexpected circumstances. That is why you've always had hospitalization plans. That's why you have always had catastrophic illness plans. Why in the world do I need insurance to take a baby who's not sick to the hospital? That's asinine. I'm sorry. That's not good. And that is that is one of the things that is driving costs. You are basically putting billions of dollars a month out there in a system that will never be used, and then having suppliers fight for these dollars. What do you think is going to happen to costs?
Well, it also incentive drives progress, for lack of a better way of saying the word progress, which I've become to hate lately. But you're not going to get better health care when you take the incentive away. If someone that doesn't work is told you're going to have the same amount of health care as someone who does, then no one's going to work. And it's already getting to the point where venture capital in medical innovation is, quote unquote, stressed, under significant stress. This is according to the actual Obama administration. Venture capital investment in American life sciences innovation is suffering at an alarming decline because there's no money in biotech anymore. There's no reason for anybody to try to make any money, or at least here in the United States, we're forcing them to go elsewhere. And then we won't have the best health care ever.
You're right. But again, we're looking at this particular point, and it's kind of like, pay no attention to the man behind the screen. The political left is simply trying to enslave the nation. They don't care how they do it. And if you are paying attention to, let's talk about who's going to have health care. Let's talk about who's not going to have health care. Let's get back to the basic thing. You will no longer have the right to tell the government to leave you alone.
Well, someone's actually said, exactly, someone actually said to a lawmaker, I forget who it was, might have been Kathleen Sebelius, Health and Human Services. They said, how am I going to keep my personal health records out of the hands of the government? And I'm not sure if it was her or not, but the answer was pay cash. That was the answer. I mean, what unmitigated gall.
But that's not going to work either in a system where you must carry health insurance. And let's not forget what happens when you have a health insurance plan. Don't forget, we're going to digitize records. Mm-hmm. So if I have a government-provided health insurance plan in which the records are digitized, what part of privacy do you really think Come on, guys. This has never been about health insurance. It's never been about health insurance.
But even
if it's never even been about health care.
No, it's about a grab at 1/6 of the American economy is what it is, and that's why Hillary Care was overturned or defeated.
But that's the secondary thing. The primary thing is basically I cannot allow the people to have a say in their personal affairs if I'm going to control them totally?
Well, if you think about it,
I guess have to say.
Well, even if Obama,
the fact that the economy is going to be compromised is secondary. The primary thing that the political left, particularly in this country, wants is control of people and telling them what their liberties are. That is what they want. What better way to do that than to tell you how much, when, and to what extent you can have health care?
If you're 70 years old and you're retired, we don't need to give you that stent. We don't need to give you, that procedure.
But I heard a story. I heard a story this morning. It was an interesting story about organ transplant. There's a 10-year-old girl somewhere in this country, and I saw the story on the news this morning. There's a 10-year-old girl here who can't get a lung transplant because she's not 12 years old. And the rules say that if you're 12 years old, you're considered an adult, and they deal with you that way. But if you're 10 years old, you're still in the pediatrics. And even though adult lungs can be cut down, for lack of a better word, to fit a pediatric situation, the government is basically saying, not doctors making this decision, the government making a decision that, well, you know what, you're not old enough, you can't have a lung. And
well,
I'm
the
like,
IRS is in charge. Look at what the IRS is doing with nonprofit groups. Whether you're on the left or the right, they're targeting people they disagree with. And you can't say, well, Obama didn't know, because these are the people he put in office. Now
wait a minute. There's a liberal argument about that.
Okay.
Because of the fact that what's her name was a Bush appointee. So they're going to throw that up at you.
Yeah, but the point is, if your boss has a certain mindset, exactly. If your boss has a certain mindset, you can't tell me you don't know that, and you're not going to kiss his butt to try to do what he wants done. And these people who are in there are of that mindset. Anyhow,
John and AJ, you want to weigh in on what Stan was talking about?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
No, I don't have anything to add to what Stan was talking about.
I just think, John, you need to really look into it, obviously decide for yourself. But the problem is, nobody read this. It was passed. Now it's starting to be implemented, and people are that are on the outskirts and starting to have this affect them are waking up. It still has over a 52% disapproval rating, which so it hasn't gotten any better in 4 years. And once you put your tax return in this coming year and you have to fill out that form for Obamacare, that's it, because then you're in the system. So even if it's repealed after the end of this year, it doesn't matter, because everything is back weighted, and that was the whole grand design to begin with.
Guys, we've got a caller that's calling in here from it looks like the South Carolina area. Are you in there with us?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, give us your name. You're in here with Donna, Don, AJ, John, and Stan.
Yeah. You know who this is. My name's Greg.
Oh, Greg, okay.
You guys talk about health care. This is kind of in my wheelhouse here. And Stan was very eloquent in his explanation of why the argument of auto insurance equals health care insurance is a fallacy. It's not the same thing. We don't have competition in health insurance like we do in auto insurance. That's just on the free enterprise part of it. We are required in most states to get uninsured motorist coverage, which costs an extra anywhere from 14 to 25%. What Obama's peddling is that it will cost less because we're all in a larger pool, when in fact that's not the case at all. I get very frustrated with the idea, and again, Stan pointed out this a little bit ago, that somehow we all have a right to a certain level of coverage or a certain level of insurance, because, as he said, this is not about health care. It's about insurance and control. everybody on the planet seemingly that's thinking this thing through is understanding where this is going, except for Paul Krugman, who is a New York Times
well, it's a New York
editorialist.
Times.
He came out this morning and had a big dissertation on how this is going to ultimately be, the shiny, happy, wonderful thing that everybody envisioned it might be. And, I honestly, there are people that are of the most liberal ilk, including Harry Reid, that has indicated that this thing is not going in the direction it wants to go.
Yeah, but Harry Reid wants to double down and throw more money after it. See, that's what happens. Well, we didn't have enough money to begin with. Throw more money after it.
Well, but that you see that in the Department of Education.
See it everywhere.
How that works. Yes. My concern here is this, and I think Stan especially will agree with me. We can't fix this. In 2014, if we get an overwhelming majority of hardcore conservatives, not Republicans, but conservatives, it won't make any difference. Even if you can override vetoes, the die has been cast.
Mm-hmm.
The snowball is rolling down the mountainside. It's just a matter of how badly we want to be crushed at the bottom of the hill now.
Well, Greg, and I want you to continue, but I want to throw something in there. It's like, here is the thing that the political left is banking on, that we want the country to stay together in its current form so much that we will roll over on something like this. That is what they're banking on.
I would tend to, I think so. I think there's two sides of that same notion. On the one hand, I believe that the left envisions that no one on the right will have enough, cojones to actually stand up and do anything demonstrably large enough to make a difference. And then on the other side of that, on the right, what you're asking of the country to do is something, tantamount to secession or some type of political discord that would change this the whole face of the nation.
And that is what the political left is banking on.
Well, I think they're right. Quite frankly.
Well, so far they are.
There is nobody on the right that has any cojones.
Well, no, the thing is, you're talking politically. I'm not talking politically, per se. I'm talking about what they are saying is that they believe the bulk of Americans, and we're not talking about the bulk of the country, we're talking about the bulk in each of the 50 states, is going to go along with this to the point where they think keeping the country together is more important than fighting this. I am not 100% certain that is correct, but that is the bet they're making. But you look on, the Texas nationalist movement is not as strong as it could be, but it ain't no joke.
Well, the thing is, 52% of the people still are against it, and it has not gone up in popularity at all in the last 4 years. There's something to be said from that, and that's coming from the left and the right, because a lot of people are slowly starting to look into this. I just, say to anybody, what does the government do better?
2014 is going to move a lot of poll numbers.
Yeah, but the problem is that it's too late. You've already filled out your IRS form, and everybody knows what your health is.
But Donna, you're buying into the construct. You are saying that the nation that the nation as it is currently configured must stay intact.
Mm-hmm.
If that is the idea of the person who loves freedom, that things must stay intact, then how the heck did we get a country to begin with?
Yeah. That's true.
Well, I agree, Stan, but you take somebody, like where AJ lives right now. You have low unemployment. Regardless of what bad things are going on in this country, I would say that North Dakota and some states that are similar to that, some of this other crap, I can still go to the grocery store and I can choose from 47 different kinds of green beans, and I don't have to worry about, getting gas, even though it's overpriced, and life is pretty convenient, so, I'm not...
You are Greg, you're absolutely right. The idea is that it stays that way, and that these things are so incremental that we go back to the how do you boil a frog, analogy. Here is the problem. 2014 is going to be huge. If what I understand to be the case, at least from a conversation I had with a HR executive, was, in 2011, the government started publishing on your W-2 a number in block 12 or 12A with a DD code. And that amount of money represented how much your employer was contributing on your behalf toward health insurance. And last year, and in 2011, they started doing it. In 2012, it was more widespread. And both times, it was not taxable. But why in the world would the government want that money to show up on a W-2 if it's not going to be taxable?
Well, they say some of these taxes could be as high as 40%.
Well, but here's the thing. What you're talking about is taxation on an amount of money that you never saw.
Mm-hmm.
And taxation of a point, depending upon how much is paid, that not only is taxation on money that you never saw, but the amount of money that you never saw could now push you into a different tax bracket on the money that you did see.
Well, and then you throw in the tax increase that went into effect the first of this year, which people were going nuts over. Can you imagine when you throw Obamacare on top of that?
Well, if you start getting taxed for your essentially what is your premiums and what is your employer's contribution to that. By the way, just as an aside, back in the 90s, John McCain promoted that idea. So just to let you know, but that will happen. That's a done deal. That is part of this natural progression. What I suspect is going to happen beyond that is when you have elective surgeries, in other words, things that are not life and death, things that you choose to do for convenience or for abating pain or whatever, those items will then also be taxed on the value of whatever that surgery was or procedure or scan or diagnostic image or whatever. There's an endless having the Supreme Court allow for the taxation aspect of this to go through opens up a whole plethora of revenue streams for people that want more money to go to the government.
Let me ask AJ and John. Okay, AJ, you're more from the right and you agree with Obamacare. John, you don't. You're from the left and you also don't have health care, but you're for Obamacare. Let me ask, we'll start off with you, John. You said you started to look into this. Have you been questioned about your health per se? Are you in good health? Have they asked you that kind of stuff? And do you have prior conditions and that kind of questioning? Because in that respect, Obamacare is being sold to many people who have pre-existing conditions that, then you're not going to have a problem getting health care.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't gotten that far into the whole process. I'm kind of feeling that out, and, we'll see how it goes. I'll definitely keep you updated as to how my search for healthcare goes and what Obamacare, how that has an effect on it. But, so far I haven't gotten far enough into it to know, what effect Obamacare is going to have. But like I said, I do support it. I think anything that increases your access to medical care is a good thing. I believe that's what it's going to do, and it's going to make healthcare available to millions more people in this country.
Yeah, that's where I got to take issue with you, though. Healthcare already is available to everyone.
Nobody's turned away right now.
I knew a guy that was working on a chicken farm that was here illegally, or he was in Alabama illegally, and his wife got pregnant. She had all the Lamaze classes she wanted for free. The delivery of the kid was free. They didn't have to pay anything. Then they decided to have a second child, and it was all free.
Here's what scares me.
And that's for somebody that's not here legally.
Well, here's what scares me. You have doctors who know they're not going to make that much money because Obamacare is going to pretty much dictate what they're going to make. And the tort reform was not put in. Health insurance is through the roof. And now my girlfriend, who's an OBGYN, some of the few remaining in New Jersey, told me she needs additional insurance for the coding. Just in case she messes up on all these codes, she needed additional insurance to make sure these codes are done. So what do you think's going to happen? First of all, a lot of these doctors that are older are just going to say bag it.
Well,
Kids
we
are
met
coming
one 2
up,
weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
With who was already retired and he's in his early 60s. You've got kids coming through school that are the best and brightest that are going to say, why should I bother? I'm not going to go to med school. This is a joke. And then you have some 30 million people you're adding to the healthcare rolls, and if anything, you've got a huge reduction in the number of doctors. So what happens when you have no doctors and you have more patients? You have to, you're going to have problems getting care.
AJ?
One of the things, I was going to say, one of the things that happens, the argument is positioned and posited to the people, and John kind of spoke that phrase, is I want more people to have access to health care. And Don, you answered it absolutely correctly, is everybody has access to health care now. It's an emergency room, it's a clinic, it's whatever it is, it's there. I've been able to go to clinics and without insurance whenever something took place that I felt there was a need to go. It's become more difficult and it's become more challenging to get more health care because there's been more government intervention and more government regulation piled on year after year after year. And the malpractice, the tort reform that Donna mentioned, there was all of these discussions, can't get health care, there needs to be tort reform, there needs to be health care, gay marriage, Benghazi, IRS, all of these things. The left and the liberal and the progressive movement does not focus on one battlefront. They're not concerned about just one aspect. They're concerned about complete and total control because, in my opinion, and I will say it is just my opinion of a progressive leftist liberal is someone who you see them all through your life. They're the busybody, control freak, know-it-all, smartest person in the room. And if everybody else would just do things the way they want them to do it, then this would be such a better place. But gosh darn Bobby with his guns and watching his NASCAR, and silly Sally, who just wants to be a stay-at-home mom, and, the people in the shadows, we can't call them illegal aliens. They're doing the work Americans wouldn't want to do. They create a nation of victims. Victims of skin color, victims of gender, victims of social mobility, victims of financial situation, victims of whatever is convenient to further the idea of we can do it better than you. And the idea that anyone can live my life better than I can is absolutely ridiculous. If I'm not allowed to make mistakes, to try and fail, to hope and come up short, to risk something and succeed, then I never have a music career. I come from the mountains of West Virginia, a mountaineer, a state mostly joked about, and because I tried, because I risked, willing to fail, I succeeded, and I got to do something that I dreamed of from the time I was 10 years old. Everything that is coming out of this administration from day one, and it continues today, puts in place disincentive for someone who might be 10 years old right now to do any of the things that I chose to do in my life. It incentivizes complacency. It incentivizes mindlessness. And it's all wrapped up in this pretty pink bow of compassion and emotion. And it's really, really offensive. And I've really had to work on controlling my emotion when I get into a discussion with liberals who think that I'm, of well, I can't say of the devil because they don't believe in God, that I am the emphasis of anything good, simply because I have self-confidence, self-esteem, and believe in my self-worth, and trust myself before I trust them. And that, to me, is the biggest crime. And they will distract us with gay marriage, and they will distract us with health care and obesity and smoking and any social event or issue to make sure that they can drive the point home that they know better than me and that they're the smartest people in the country. And if all of us idiots would just shut our mouths and want more health care and want more regulation and want more fairness, that our lives would be better. And it is the furthest thing from the truth.
Amen. Amen to everything you said.
Well, it's victimization.
Hold on, let me interject one thing here. I think that there are many Democrat and liberals that, quite frankly, have been hijacked by this progressive movement, which thinks exactly like AJ was talking about. I know a lot of liberal friends and a lot of Democrat friends that don't necessarily feel that way, but they're starting to feel like they're getting their chains jerked. They're starting to feel like they've been duped, and they're starting to feel like, on a lesser scale, some of the things that a conservative may feel because of this progressive, radical left agenda.
Yeah.
But here's something that I can specifically tell you all based on my experiences. There's really, the left and the right has gotten blurred. You've got the John McCains and the Lindsey Grahams who just want to be popular. Washington, D.C. is a popularity contest. Both sides suck, quite frankly, right now.
Well,
they really do. And you've got, well, hold on, wait 1 second.
Go ahead.
They go out there, they stand up and they say, well, I want this, but then behind the scenes, they yuck it up, they go out to dinner, they date each other, they talk in the bedroom. I'm sorry. This is what's going on. And the last thing on earth they care about is you and me, quite frankly. They could care less, because if they didn't care, or if they did care, they wouldn't exempt themselves from Obamacare. If they did care, they wouldn't give themselves gold-plated health care. They're gazillionaires. You've got Dianne Feinstein's husband getting some real estate deal based on, something the government is doing. So you got to think to yourself, how do these people who, what does the president of the United States make now? $300,000? Used to be a couple $100,000. Senators and congressmen, a heck of a lot less. How come they can serve 1 or 2 terms and retire if they want to with millions? You got to wonder. And the whole Washington elite establishment right now is starting to rule as opposed to govern.
Well, I don't care whether they're from the GOP or whether they're liberals. The bottom line is that politicians, especially in Washington, but even at a state level, look at the 6 of us that are in this conversation, regardless of where you stand politically, they look at us as if we're serfs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Well, that's about it. But first of all, that's exactly it. But the only issue I was going to take was what Donna was saying. There is no such thing as a conservative politician.
No.
There's such a thing as a conservative. The problem is we keep electing politicians. And Webster, I think it was Noah Webster said it, bottom line, they may have good intentions, but they intend to govern.
Well, how about Obama saying to Dr. Benjamin Carson, who is a brain surgeon and a very gifted brain surgeon, saying, when they were starting to talk about him possibly running for office, Carson this is, and Obama said, well, what does he know about running for office and that kind of thing? And to which Carson replied, it's not brain surgery.
Well, and that's great. But, this is the thing that gets me. And this is also another victory for the political left. They have gotten us to focus on people rather than ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Guys, it never matters who's wrong. It matters what's wrong. And the whole diversion of, well, we got to get rid of Obama. No, we don't have to get rid of Obama. What we have to get rid of is liberalism.
Well, what we have to get rid of is the fact of victimization. It's not liberalism, it's progressivism. There's a difference.
Well, okay. No, there really isn't a difference.
Well, maybe not anymore.
Yeah, maybe not in the political left in this country.
The Saul Alinsky.
Yeah, but let's address that, Stan. Address the difference between the political liberalism and a gentleman like John, who is a good human being that happens to have liberal views. Because there's a massive difference.
I would agree there's a massive difference. But it really comes down to this. Until you take a stand in all ways against the wrong idea, then the difference doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. We know, for example, we know what the political left that gets elected is trying to do. It's intuitively obvious to the casual observer. You cannot tell me that you are a good person who supports freedom if you vote for that. Because Ray Charles knows that they're not about people being free. He's dead and blind. If you're going to vote for it, then you can't tell me that you are actually not in line with that. It is one of the most, and this is, with all respect to John, I'm not against John at all. I agree with everything you said about John in describing him. But you cannot vote for oppression and then say that you do not favor oppression. You can't do it. You cannot do it. If you know it's wrong and you support it anyway, if you know it's wrong and you support it anyway, then how can you disassociate yourself from its effects? You can't.
They've made a really strong effort, the left, to redefine and revalue really lots of important words and ideas and philosophies that this country was founded on. Truth, fairness, freedom, liberty, all of those things they've tried to change the definition of. Liberty isn't freedom. Liberty is a house, a car, health care, whatever you want. And they've been successful. And they've fooled a lot of folks. And I don't mean to folks are fools. They're smart people. They have the capacities and the potentials that all of us do. Everyone does. But when they've been convinced that freedom means something differently than what we were taught when I was a kid, if it means something different now and they believe in it, then they'll accept that oppression as some, you take the good with the bad, I guess is the cliche that gets thrown at it, is liberty is security and safety and fairness and everybody being equal and happy and it's just like one size fits all. When actually liberty is liberty.
People
whatever.
Are not equal. People are not equal. They were created
equal. Opportunity.
Yeah,
right.
But they're not all the same. That's the whole thing. Right. And one size does not fit all. If anybody's ever been to a communist country, you can see what it does. All it does is stifle creativity. You mean to think if first of all, the founder of Home Depot here in Georgia said he'd never, with all the restrictions in government, he never would have been able to found Home Depot right now, given all the restrictions now.
That's a big box store. That's horrible. They're awful. I know. They push
Walmart,
out small
same
companies.
thing.
The free market is evil, right?
Well, that's the thing. This country
No.
was based on the free market. Well, I know.
I know. I
gotta say this. The free market is not equal. The free market is free.
Yeah.
This is not about people not having an advantage. The purpose
No, I think
of the
he
free
said
market
that the free market,
is to
he was
go in
being
there
facetious.
And create an advantage for yourself. That is what the free market is for. Those who can go in and create an advantage for themselves will be more profitable. It doesn't mean they're going to grind other people into the dirt. No, because one of the touchstones of capitalism is, guess what? You cannot make money unless you make other people money. That is how capitalism works. I pursue my self-interest at the same time someone pursues their self-interest to my benefit as well as theirs. You cannot make money in capitalism until someone else makes it as well. They're not going to make the same amounts of money. They're not supposed to. You come up with a better idea, then you should get paid. Bill Gates sold an operating system he didn't own, and now the guy's worth $30-something billion. What's the problem there? Nothing.
Well, hold on one second, Stan. That's great what you're saying, but AJ, correct me if I'm wrong.
You were being sarcastic, saying that the big box stores was evil.
No, see, that's what I'm saying. Because we know the free market works. We had a couple hundred years before progressivism, well, almost a couple hundred before progressivism started to take hold in the progressive income tax, where it worked. Where there were, I guess we could, if we go back far enough in time, we can see balanced budgets and lack of debt and proper management based on what the Constitution directed the government to do. But the con artists and people who do take advantage and people who will lie, cheat, and figured out their best marks weren't strange folks in strange cities. It was getting elected and going and winning that popularity contest, and then they can fleece all the people while they point the finger at a Donald Trump or a Koch brother or somebody else who came up with a better mousetrap, is the cliche, profited off of it, and then they get to say that those people were fleecing the serfdom, the working class.
Think how many millionaires Bill Gates created. His secretary became a millionaire. I mean,
well,
she
should have to pay higher taxes, though, right?
She does.
See,
she makes $300,000 a year. Nobody talks about that.
She ought to pay the same percentage as everybody else should have to pay. And given the fact that she's making more, she will be contributing more. But she ought to make she ought to pay in her taxes the same percentage that Donna pays, that I pay, and that the rest of you guys pay. Same percentage.
What annoys me is the vilification of success. And that is one thing that brings me back to the public education system. I mean, I was even talking to a friend of mine today, and she said, we sound like old farts. When I went to school, when I was your age, we were taught this, this, and this. And I can say the same thing for my parents' generation. I didn't know half of the stuff my father was taught even in high school. What he learned in high school is probably equivalent to a master's degree. And to vilify success, I mean, I guess about a year ago, we were watching Leave It to Beaver. We watched the whole series. And all they talked about was, this guy, he's successful. Don't you want to be like him? This guy did that. And the beav is trying to learn values. And the beav has to do the right thing. And now we were thinking, how... Shush. He's got a dirty mind.
Ward. Don't you think you're a little hard on the beaver?
But if you go and watch that, it's amazing how things have changed. The suburban life is horrible and this and that. And
you actually had somebody on, we mentioned this numerous times on Facebook, that we were watching the entire 220 episodes of Leave It to Beaver. You guys wonder
when Ward
what
got
we've
a better
got to
job,
do with our spare time.
And when Ward got a better job, he got a bigger house.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You actually had somebody on your Facebook page bash.
Oh, my friend I went to high school with.
Yeah.
How can you watch that? It's so backwards. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, something like if we still lived in that era, you'd be wearing an apron in the kitchen.
Yeah. When I worked in New York 30 years ago. I like wearing an apron. There's nothing wrong. Well, I don't wear an apron, but...
Hey,
it's not
John,
okay to choose
I got to ask John
feel,
something.
Yeah.
John,
yes.
I know you're still there because I can see you here.
John's thinking these guys are nuts.
First of all, are you ever going to do this again? Secondly, has blood shot out of your eyes yet?
No, I'm.
Because that is not covered under Obamacare. I'm just messing with you. It is. It is. Blood shooting out of your eyes is covered
under Obamacare.
I was assuming everything was covered under Obamacare.
140,000 different things are.
Oh, fantastic. I'm all set then.
You're set.
No,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I enjoy listening to you guys. And, I'm not one of those self-righteous liberals. I consider myself a pragmatic liberal, and I'm open to all different points of view. We all have our points of view and what's important to us, and I guess that's what makes the country great. And there are different opinions, and
but see, that's the point. We still have the choice, John. Unfortunately, some on the far left don't want to give anybody the choice. It's their way or the highway, and that's what I think so many people are starting to resent.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
in my opinion, the people on
you just
the
touched
far
on
left.
it.
Hold on, let John
go ahead.
finish.
I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
Just one little point. I mean, people on the far left, I think they're just as nutty as the people on the far right. I mean, it's ridiculous, some of the things they come up with that I see on my Facebook page. I have a lot of, liberal people on my Facebook page, and it's just, I don't agree with any of that.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but could you give me an example of what you're talking about where somebody is so far left and so radically left that a general middle-of-the-road liberal dude is appalled by it?
Well, I can't think of any specific point, but when I see things, I mean, you guys, for example, don't like President Obama because you think he's some kind of bleeding heart liberal, but when you see a true extreme left-wing liberal, they look at President Obama like he's, some sort of right-wing nut.
He's not far enough left for them.
He's not far enough left.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with that. He's doing a great job as far as I'm concerned, and for somebody who's middle of the road,
Hey, John, can I give you a homework assignment?
Yeah.
I want you to look into healthcare really thoroughly for yourself. And I want you to tell me what you think, obviously not next week or whenever, but, and truthfully, it's probably in your best interest to do that before the end of the year. Because you're going to, I think, be very, very surprised at what you're going to find. And luckily, you're young enough, you're not going to have a problem. I think this is the true problem. It's not going to happen overnight. This stuff is going to happen through attrition. And as the population gets older, we're really going to be in big trouble here because you're going to have fewer people paying into it. You've got an older population, and you've got a government that's going to tell you what kind of services you can and cannot have. And that is a very dangerous situation, in my opinion.
Stan put it beautifully earlier. He said it's not about people, it's about ideas. And that's exactly right. Right and wrong isn't an opinion in most situations. I mean, I guess maybe we can find some. Say, hitting a dog with your fist, that's wrong. And that's an example that I can prove. If you hit a dog with your fist, it's wrong. So there's no, what would the opinion be that would make it right? And I guess if we use words, if we can have enough of a command of the English language, we could litigate the opinion that hitting a dog with your fist is okay. And if we just had the right people regulating how we hit the dog with our fist, and a commission appointed to do a study, and we can grant lots of money to some universities to find out the effects of the different types of fists we might use. You see what I mean? The right and wrong disappears, and it becomes a game of words and litigation and playing on people's emotions. People who have jobs and families and lives, and they can't spend all day focusing on the crap coming out of a politician's mouth.
Create chaos.
That is the whole point. Create it across the board.
It's funny you mention that because they're circling the wagons now here in D.C., or up in D.C., I should say. They have multiple, not one, but multiple investigations and committees from both sides that are going to look into these problems. Benghazi, the IRS scandal, the AP phone wiretapping and everything else, and the whole James Rosen problem with the IRS or the AP, whatever. I'm losing track of everything. But the point is, they're going to have multiple investigations, not just one. Because even Boehner was saying, well, we don't have to have a special committee look into this because there's other ones doing it. Well, the problem is then nothing happens because, again, you've got so many people with their special interests in D.C. The only thing they care about is getting reelected. They could care less about us, meaning the American people. And many people are too worried, the Joan Cleavers of the world are too worried about making ends meet and, cleaning the house and mowing the lawn and paying our taxes and trying to be good citizens. You assume, that your lawmakers are going to do the best thing for you, and that is far from the truth.
I got a question. Because just because I'm the contrarian that I am, this is what it comes down to me.
I just thought you were the black guy on the panel.
Well, yeah, that too.
Oh, okay.
But two things come to my mind. One, when is anybody going to get the message that the political left in this country wants a democracy and not a republic?
Yeah, there is a difference.
When is the country going to get it that President Obama keeps calling our country a democracy?
A democracy.
Over and over again.
And there is no more oppressive form of government than one where the people think they are right in taking from someone else. Mm-hmm. Which is why the founders never gave us a democracy in the first place. They know what democracies do.
It's mob rule.
Mob rule. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing which amazes me is why there are 320 plus million people in this country, and we are sitting around like sheep letting 536 folks tell us what to do.
Yeah, that's...
But you say you want to be at liberty. Mm-hmm. What the heck is wrong? It can't be just me. You're going to let 536 people tell 320 million what to do.
But it falls on deaf ears, Stan. It totally falls on deaf ears. You have 52% of the people from the left and the right that for 4 years plus now have said they don't want Obamacare. They don't care in Washington. This is a grab at 1/6 of the American economy.
That's my point. Who cares what Washington wants?
Well, what are you going to do? They've got 5 hollow point bullets for every man, woman, and child in this country.
You know what? Well, just to make an extreme but accurate point, if you ain't willing to die, you ain't about to be free.
Yeah, exactly. And that is scary.
That's right.
That really is scary. Hey, let me throw something else at all you guys. Here we are talking about a little bit of the IRS, Benghazi, we didn't even touch on, but we did mention it. Also the situation, obviously, with Obamacare and all the scandals going on in Washington.
The DOJ.
The DOJ. Okay, now, guess what we haven't talked about? Immigration. Amnesty for illegal aliens. And that's what they are, illegal aliens. That's a path to citizenship. And what the academics know can happen is once you say that they have a path to citizenship, then it's illegal to not allow them to vote. See, they can say
here's
that they
the bottom
don't want,
line
they
about
don't
the
want
immigration. The bottom line regarding immigration, and there is nothing more than this, is all about bolstering a voter base. Mm-hmm. Period.
Well, and you got
Nothing
another 30
that.
million people that you're going to put on Obamacare. How are we going to pay for that? The unfunded liabilities right now, it's not $16 trillion. The unfunded liabilities that this country now faces is $80 trillion plus. There's not enough money in the world for $80 trillion. People are going, we're going to become Greece. We are Greece times 10.
But
this is scary.
I hope when you say that you kind of see my point. You're letting 536 people tell 320 million what to do, and then complaining about what they decide.
Well,
and I'm like,
exactly.
huh?
Well, how about the IRS?
I'm calling my senators and my congressmen.
They don't want to hear it.
And all I get are voicemails. I even called that bit that was played earlier on the break where I called Boehner's office.
Right.
That was me calling him.
That was an actual call.
And I sat on hold with his Washington office for almost 20 minutes recording what you heard that I chopped down so I could throw it into a soundbite. Then I called
you called Disney.
yeah,
you know
exactly.
What I mean?
And I called my congressman Lynn Westmoreland's office, and I actually got somebody
because we have his personal phone number.
My question to one of his minions was, I want to know whether or not Westmoreland is going to insist on a select committee regarding Benghazi. This was 3 weeks ago that I placed this call. And his response was, no, because we've already got 5 committees looking into it.
Well,
and
that's what I just said.
I know. And we don't want to delay the process anymore.
I can tell you what those committees will find. all the ones that were appointed by the Democrats will not find anything really too disturbing. What's the point anyway? What does it really matter, like Hillary said? And all the ones from the Republican side will find lists and lists of wrongdoings, and it'll just continue, and then there'll be a new crisis, a hurricane, a tornado, an earthquake.
And we'll all forget about it.
Something else, and we'll all be forced to forget about it because the media will cover nothing but what the news story is.
Well, today the media had to be, Asbury Park.
I gotta ask this question.
What?
If you are really concerned about the things you're talking about, then why are you talking to Washington? You are bypassing the very power structure that the Constitution still supports. Any governor in the United States is constitutionally more powerful than the president.
Yeah, but that's not the case now.
Here's my point. As long as you keep focusing on the federal government, how the heck are you going to empower the governors?
Mm-hmm. We have to have a voter turnout level that's maybe higher than 50%. We need to have people turn out.
No. Why are you talking to D.C. at all? That is my point.
Oh, I'm talking about local. I'm talking about voting locally. I'm talking about using our right to vote, period, from the ground up.
Well, here's the thing. You have basically castrated these people. Mm-hmm. Why the heck should I care about these impotent folks at the state level? You've castrated them. Why should I vote for them?
Yep.
What difference do they make?
Those 500 and some that were somehow elected castrated them. Because they can count on us not voting. They can count. It's voter suppression. And that's the term that's been linked with the IRS scandal, voter suppression. If they can't go
along.
Go ahead.
I'll go along with you to say that about what has happened, but I'm not so certain I can agree with how. Because as soon as you say that, you're saying that people are too dumb to fix this.
No.
It's like, you know what?
No.
All right, go ahead.
No, they're free. They're free. See, that's what freedom means. Freedom means I don't have to vote. Freedom means I don't have to go to college. Freedom means I don't have to do all of the things that would be the best thing to do. I can do what I choose. And what has been fostered here is complacency and lack of interest. And that is the issue. If someone felt like you did, Stan, and we did, or the six of us, if everybody was as passionate and as engaged, our conversations probably would be going differently. And I think that's the issue, is you're absolutely right. But getting other people to feel and have the energy and the motivation to do something about it is really where the breakdown occurs, and that's what they figured out a long time ago, I think.
Laziness. People are inherently lazy. If you're going to sit there and give somebody a flat screen TV and a roof over your head and food, food stamps where you can go to a restaurant, and you're making them comfortable instead of uncomfortable. I mean, you got old people committing crimes now because they can't afford health care and food and a roof over their head, so they can go to jail because they got a better life.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
The values of this country have been so skewed because of the victimization. It's taken hold that we're at a tipping point. 49% of the people that don't pay any taxes. So of course they're going to vilify, Apple and whoever else for not paying enough taxes because half of them don't pay taxes anyhow, so they don't identify with it. It's very, very scary at this point how duped the American public has become. And again, it goes back to me, in my opinion, of the public education system. To me, that's Neil Bort said it best. It's child abuse. It really is.
Well, yeah, but we abandoned the public education system, and not to mention the secondary education system, to the liberals. Mm-hmm. They're doing exactly what they plan to do, which is basically, I'm sorry to say it, if I dumb down the country, then basically they will accept the idea of democracy over liberty. And that is the problem. We talk about freedom. Freedom is not the issue. Liberty is the issue. Mm-hmm. I can free slaves, but I cannot put a slave at liberty. Liberty means nobody is telling me what I can do, which goes back to, I think it was AJ saying, hey, I can vote or I can't vote. I don't have to vote. But at the same time, I cannot be dictated to if I am at liberty. That is the difference.
To me,
that's the difference.
Yeah, well, and it's very sad. I mean, if you think about, 100 years or so ago when people did become free after being kept their whole lives, they couldn't handle it. A lot of the slaves actually could not handle it. It's to me, I don't know how for a better way of saying it. It's almost like, it is human nature, unfortunately. If you get anything used to, a certain way of life and they don't have to work for it, you're made comfortable as opposed to uncomfortable to be on the public dole. I mean, when I was growing up, it was... Well,
and I think I need to make something clear that you're not trying to state that slavery was comfort.
No, but what I'm saying is they had food and they had shelter. And when they got that liberty that Stan's talking about, they didn't know what to do with it. They couldn't handle it. And it is a slow process of generation after generation of people realizing that they can better themselves. I mean, the fact that we have an African American in the White House, to me, is an amazing thing. I mean, you don't see that in any other country, somebody coming from nothing, where we had slaves, a couple hundred years ago, and to become president of the United States. It is indeed the land of opportunity, but yet you've got people vilifying that opportunity as it exists, which just, it's like biting the hand that feeds you. I don't know. Maybe it's a better way of saying it.
Well, it is, but one thing about liberty as opposed to freedom, it comes down to this. Liberty means, you can't fail. Mm-hmm. And if you fail, that's on you. Mm-hmm. That's what liberty comes. That's something that liberty comes down to, which is
liberty removes excuses.
No, you can make excuses under liberty, just nobody cares.
There you go.
The thing is, under what we are calling freedom. Oh well, this guy, he failed, and you know what? Nobody should be allowed to fail. So, gosh darn it.
Everybody gets a trophy.
Hey, Michael Jordan didn't make his high school basketball team.
No, everybody who did not fail, you need to dig deep and give to this guy who was driving a FedEx truck but thought he could actually pay a $500,000 home loan. You got to dig deep and take care of him.
Yeah. Which is happening again, by the way.
We're talking about. And the thing is, if somebody screws up...
Are you bringing up Dodd-Frank?
Well, I'm saying, Dodd-Frank's ridiculous, but the whole thing is, if somebody screws up and loses their home, instead of saying, man, why'd you screw up and lose your home, we can't allow this. And it's like, well, wait a minute. So how much of my money are you going to take? I mean, which is why we have a Tea Party in the first place.
Yep.
I mean, you can go back whoever that guy's name is on CNBC, his rant, when he was like, are you kidding me? You're basically going to reach into the pocket of people who go to work every day, manage their finances somewhat reasonably, and take from them, so a bunch of people who basically did liar loans don't lose their houses? Are you kidding me?
Well, they shouldn't have had the houses in the first place because.
But here's the bigger point. You just took liberty away from those people who did nothing wrong.
Right.
When you reach into their pocket.
It compassion.
Well, the Tea Party's being vilified, and these are people who just want the government out of their lives.
Let me ask John a question. John.
Yes.
Give me your impression of the Tea Party.
The Tea Party. Well, I'm certainly not a fan of the Tea Party.
Okay. Why?
They certainly don't represent views that I have. I mean, I think of them as extreme right, anti-government. They don't like paying their taxes. Not that any of us do, but certainly it's they're not my people. Being from a more progressive standpoint. It's not my thing.
AJ?
Nothing too substantive, and I'm not trying to be critical, but I think the thing is, I think that's just an example of what is said through mass media about them.
I was just going to say that's what the media said.
Yeah.
They're just dying
for
exactly. The media is dying for a Tea Party or to do some violent thing. I mean, they were just frothing at the mouth with all these horrible things that have happened in the last couple of years, and to find out later on that they were not Tea Partiers, it was unbelievable.
AJ, I don't know if you're a member of the Tea Party. I don't know if you support the Tea Party. Counter what John said as your take on the Tea Party.
You know what? I'm not a member. I do agree with a lot of what they have, I guess the word would be espoused. But you know what I see when I see pictures of Tea Party groups and people gathering and protesting or being activists or whatever it is? I see my grandma. I see my aunt. I see my cousins. I see my uncles and my aunts. I see people that I do call of my kind. I see people that I do call fellow citizens. And I heard someone else say this on the radio the other day, and I wish I remembered who it was. But the balkanizing of this country, the creating of sides, right, left, middle, independent, whatever the term may be, is by design. And it's gotten to a point where you can't even have a dinner with a neighbor, is what the person said. And it's absolutely true. And we hear people, as John just did, say they're not my people. Partners are
Think about this.
American citizens. And if we're going to talk about respecting opinions, if we're going to talk about respecting other people's rights to demonstrate, to speak out, to have their voice be heard, and then we turn around and say they're not my people, then I think it illustrates a real disconnect I think it illustrates that there has been a purposeful disconnect between the citizens of the U.S., the term patriotism, its definition, and what it means to the left, the middle, and the right. It's been by design, and it is working. And it's really disturbing.
Although, in defense, and I do support the Tea Party, John, but in defense of what you had to say, you've got very high-profile politicians that are labeling themselves as strong advocates of the Tea Party that are turning around and bashing some of the liberal views that quite possibly could be a turnoff or offensive to a liberal voter.
Well, the two Senate candidates come to mind. They're complete idiots. The one jerk that said, something about rape being, your body can turn it off and that kind of thing. And that totally is so out of whack with what most people think that it's stupid. It's just plain stupid. But you have that highlighted by the media. But then you don't have stuff highlighted by the media from the other side because the media is so in the tank for any leftist views. That's what bothers me. When you've got a guy also in office saying Guam is going to tip over and, if we put soldiers on it, I mean, there's stupidity from both sides. But to me, just think about it. After an election, everybody goes about doing their thing and everybody's happy and everything's going on. You worry about your family, you got to take your kid to karate or to, voice lessons or dance lessons or basketball or whatever. This is the first time I remember people really engaged in conversation and heated debate to the point where they start calling each other names and everything else. And that's the balkanization.
I can tell you this. In the past 4 years, to at least to my knowledge, it's the first time I have ever been labeled as a racist.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
And I've been labeled as a racist, not because of anything I said, not because of anything I said to any of my black friends, but because I disagreed with Barack Obama's policies.
Right.
And that's why I was called a racist. I was also, or you were called, Donna, a anti-Semite.
Yeah, right. My grandfather was Jewish. Or my grandmother, sorry. My dad's mom. Hello? And if you don't know something about... Yeah.
Oh, no, I posted a picture on Facebook of the illegal alien crossing the fence and going directly into a Democratic voter registration office.
Yeah.
And I had a high school friend post that I was a racist.
Yeah, okay. I had a high school friend post, and her family owns car dealerships in a very well-known area. Now, it's not a GM dealership, and I finally said, what would you have done if your family owned a GM dealership and you live in a very, very highly Republican area? That Obama came through when he first came into office, when the government took over GM and closed your family dealership because you were in a Republican area, which is exactly what happened. That in itself is inexcusable. You had family businesses for decades, generations being handed down, being closed by the government when Obama took over GM. Nobody talks about that, the cash for clunkers thing. It's insane what's gone on here. Any one of these scandals would be, have the left yelling for impeachment if a Republican were in the White House. And I really almost wish a Republican were in the White House, if for nothing else, to show the corruption going on in Washington from both sides.
Yeah.
Stan, are you a racist?
I have spoken.
Yeah, I'm racist. I hate everybody. But,
You're an equal opportunity offender.
The whole point is, none of this matters unless you're talking about a democracy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole problem.
Well, let me throw this question. Let me throw this question on the table to the three of you guys.
Okay.
And this hot, sexy Italian gal sitting next to me.
Is Greg still there?
No, I was talking about you.
Oh, okay.
All right. That was pretty funny. All right, here's my question. Actually, I've almost forgotten what my question was. Oh God, I looked at Fiducia. Yeah, I'll think of it here in a second.
Hey, what's really great about being on the American Pride Network? It's 11:06 right now Eastern Time. We don't have to stop.
Hey, I want to throw something out at you guys. Have you noticed that since we started this roundtable discussion, we've not gone to break?
I did notice that. Being
Time
a radio
flies
guy.
when you're having fun.
Thank God we're not relying on advertisers.
Because we do this for the love of it.
We lost them all. Hey, John?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm still here.
I'm still trying to get some blood to shoot out of your eyes. Here's something I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
And this has to do with the immigration that's being, the 1,000-page immigration bill.
Okay.
A possible fan of yours, am I correct to assume, was Lyndon B. Johnson?
No, he was a fan of Lyndon B. Johnson, not Johnson being a fan of John's.
Well,
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. I got up at 7 o'clock. I've been working all day.
I don't think John was born when Johnson was around.
Were you a fan of Lyndon B. Johnson?
Well, there are some things that I do like about him. Obviously, the escalation of the Vietnam War would have been something I would disagree with him, but certainly with civil rights, he made great strides.
Hey!
Okay, you walked right into it.
Watch out,
right.
John. Here it comes.
Was it a trap?
Yes, you did.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
The public school trap, John.
Now, here we go. Number one. The entire time that Lyndon B. Johnson was a senator, he voted against every civil rights bill that came up.
As did Al Gore's father.
Every one of them.
Yep.
He was a known bigot.
Mm-hmm.
He used the N-word as part of his conversational speech. And he came right out and said, and I am paraphrasing this because I don't have the quote in front of me, that I will ensure as president that the Democrat Party will always secure the black vote from this point forth, and I'll do it through entitlements. Stan, you may want to weigh in and correct me on that paraphrase, but he
didn't use the word black.
Do what?
He didn't what?
He didn't use the words black folk.
Oh, no, you're right, he didn't.
Basically, what I recall was attributed to him. He was on Air Force One and speaking to, I believe, it was 2 governors, where he basically said, I'm going to have them, and you know the word that is no longer politically correct to you. I'll have them voting Democrat for the next 200 years.
Well,
exactly. And how was he going to do it, Stan?
Oh yeah, well, it was two things. It was the civil rights legislation and entitlement.
That's right. Now,
and guess
and
what?
The objective of all that was to secure the black voter base.
Yeah.
Even though the Republican Party is really the party of anti-slavery.
I have a question I want to ask John, going back to the Tea Party thing. I have one thing I always want to know. Name something that the Tea Party stands for that, if it were enacted, would be of harm to you.
Well, now you're putting me on the spot. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. It's late.
Okay, so now you have two homework assignments.
Now I'm going to ask you a question.
Well, but my point is this: when I hear people speak against the Tea Party or speak against conservatism, that's the question. Because this is what conservatism can really be boiled down to this: leave me the heck alone.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you left everyone the heck alone, how does that harm you? Whereas on the other side, when you talk about liberalism is always about, we are going to compel you to help somebody else.
Right. Victimization.
Now, please explain to me which one of these things is more American? To compel people to do something against their will, using a government agency to ensure their compliance under penalty of law, or allowing people to do what they think is right with their own belongings. Which one of these actually lines up with the views of the American experiment?
Well, I don't see it as compelling people to do certain things, but I think that government does have a role in the economy with health care, Social Security.
Okay, but you believe that, but based on what? There is nothing to come up with that in the Constitution. You have to invent that.
And it's also
what happens if the government does none of these things? What happens if the government pulls out of the economy? If we don't have the regulation? I already know what's going to be said, but you think the EPA is the answer? I don't know about that one.
Well, that's the thing. The government has never done anything effectively that hasn't eventually gone bankrupt. And it's actually happening to the military now, too. He's gutting the military. And when I worked in New York, they threw $14,000 to $16,000 per child into the public school system, and they kept saying it wasn't enough. Because what it is, it's a money grab by the unions. They could care less about, really educating a child. It's about indoctrination right now. You pass if you're indoctrinated properly. You don't have to necessarily learn 2 + 2 is 4 or anything like that. You just have to learn to be a good little, exactly. Right. And this really, it does boil down everything as you're trying to get through, Stan, to education. Because if people were taught about the Constitution, this would not be a question. They would know. And democracies, or mob rule. A representative republic lasts maybe, 200 years? Because our founding fathers knew what human behavior eventually can degrade down into, and that's why they wrote up the Constitution the way they did. But unfortunately, if you've got an administration and, quite frankly, a Congress and a Senate that could care less about upholding the Constitution, even though they swore to uphold it when they took office, there's not too much you can do about it. That's what's really...
well, our Constitution is being used as...
They're academics. They know how to circumvent it.
They're circumventing it. They're finding the loopholes. They're finding these little hidden aspects in order to further an agenda. And I got a problem with it.
I do too.
Absolutely. Well, that's the thing, is all of these things, every idea, every part of the ideology, it's not the first time it's been tried on this planet in human history. And the fact is that it's never worked.
No.
Ever.
Well, the academics think, well, that's because we don't have the right people in power. But absolute power corrupts absolutely. You're always going to have the rich are going to be in, the ruling class. They're always going to have their health care. They could care less about whether we do or not. First thing they did was look to, exempt themselves from Obamacare. First thing they did when they said insider trading is no good, we can't do it anymore, was quietly exempt themselves from it a couple of weeks later when the public wasn't focused on it. This is the only thing that, people don't see this unless you live and breathe politics and news the way we do. Your average Joe on the street is not going to know this. He's got to go home. He's got to work. He's got to put food on the table. He's got to, hopefully pay his taxes, keep his head above water. And again, that causes problems because they're taking advantage of it in Washington.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to the thing. We were given a government where if you really go back and look at what we were given, Washington was not the big deal.
No.
The federal government was never intended to be the big deal.
Yeah, but little by little, the states...
It was set up so that the federal government was the weakest entity on the continent.
Yep.
Every state was stronger than the federal government.
Look how that's eroded.
Yeah, but see, what's happened there is the states have become so dependent financially that they're caving.
Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Yeah.
Yep.
They're caving.
It's a slow
but
process.
Guess what? Which brings us back to why you don't let the government into health care. What have they done? Because Medicare Part A, I believe, or there's one part, I can't remember what part it is. I don't think it's Part B, but maybe Part A. That's going bankrupt in less than 3 years.
Yeah.
In 2016, that goes bankrupt. And the trustees have been saying this for years.
You can.
Nobody pays attention. Medicare never had a hope of being anything other than what it was when it was debated. They knew it was socialism, and the left lied about it. Well, it's not really socialism. What the heck else is it?
Well, people only lived to maybe early 60s back then, too. So
Back
it wasn't
then
that big a deal.
Back then was
With Social Security.
1965, Donald.
I know.
Social Security was 1935.
Yeah.
But Medicare was 1965.
I'm sorry, I meant Social Security though, with the life expectancy being so much lower than it is today.
And do you really think they were so ignorant that they didn't know that life expectancy was going to continue to increase because it had never been 65 years of age in the U.S. until 1935?
Yeah. No, I mean they know it. It's the grand design.
They knew exactly what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
This whole thing was designed to basically get rid of the republic, and that is what those who call themselves liberal they just simply choose not to believe it. But everything in the design of progressivism is against liberty. It is anti-liberty because liberty says, you know what? Every man, because I think AJ was extremely eloquent when he put it out there before. I should be able to live my life on my terms, which means you can't tell me what to do with my money. You can't tell me how much of my money I get to keep. You can't tell me whether or not I'm going to be. You can't tell me any of that because it's my life.
Themselves, but they can't help themselves with the spending. That's what's so absurd.
The whole purpose of the spending is the enslavement of the American people, and why that is missed is beyond me.
Because they're not teaching it.
But that's okay. Look, the schools are bankrupt. We already know that. The schools are educationally, morally, and financially bankrupt. If you're going to sit there and rely on them and keep trying to tell me that teachers care about kids, you know what? If teachers care about kids, and we spend more money per student on education than any nation on the face of the planet, the results don't line up, and I'm not buying the lie. Right. You can say whatever you want, but without results, really? Donna, let me tell you this. If Cowboy told you every day that he loved you, but he never came home, you gonna buy that one?
Well,
where the hell did that come from?
Make us dependent. If the only thing we need is education, and it's provided publicly, and then you can move on to higher education. Who then becomes motivated to stretch the boundaries of their education. If they're going to school and they're getting the grades that they need and that they're expected, and mom and dad are proud and their allowance stays intact, and they hit that college, why should they ever look outside the boundaries of that classroom they were in for 12 years, and then the classroom they're in for 2, 4, or 6, or 8, or whatever afterwards? It's instead of the idea of ask questions, discover for yourself, read, learn, research, and then make a decision. What it's become has been, here's what you need, here's what we're telling you, accept this, and you don't need to go any further. And people don't go further. Not anyway.
It makes no sense, too, that they vilify the uber-rich, someone like a Mitt Romney, who's, employed thousands and thousands of people, and yet say nothing about Obama, who's never run a company in his whole life, and now he's running the biggest, thing in the world.
Well,
at
what
this
used
point,
to be the most
money-wise.
powerful country in the world.
Yeah, but still,
Right.
he's so disengaged. He never even starts his day before a quarter of 10.
No. Guys, no. He's not disengaged.
I don't mean he doesn't have his meetings. Let's put it this way: he doesn't do what most presidents have done in the past.
Design.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I agree. It's by design.
Yeah.
The whole idea is to basically put an organization around a tool. Obama is a tool. You put an organization around him that basically destroys the republic or works toward the demise of the republic, and these people are out of sight and out of mind. When they are exposed, they keep not telling, or they say they're not telling the tool what's going on, so that the head of the federal government continues to have plausible denial, and we replace one negative actor with another.
Mm-hmm.
I know nothing, I see nothing, and I say nothing. I know nothing, I see nothing, and I say nothing.
And that is what you get. Everything you get from Obama, no matter what it is well, I didn't know about this. Okay.
But see, the fish rots from the head down, Stan. To me, if he were a Republican, it'd be, he's damned if he does, he's damned if he doesn't. Because to say he doesn't know means he's not governing, and to say he did know, obviously, is not going to work either. He just gets a pass on everything. Nobody even knows anything about this guy.
Okay, but you go back, you said it about the education system. This has been a long time coming. You have to have people at this level of apathy and ignorance. And I use that term advisedly, but it's true. You had to have people at this level of apathy and ignorance for someone like Obama to be able to operate. Otherwise, he would be called on the carpet. Let's not forget, one of the problems that the Mexicans had with the Texans before Mexico lost Texas was that Texans were walking around in the territory with copies of the Constitution in their pockets.
Yeah.
Guess what? If we had that going on today, there's a whole lot of nonsense that would not be going on. There's a whole lot of stuff that would be in question. Am I saying the man would be impeached? No, I don't know about that, because uneducated people would actually notice the larger problem.
Mm-hmm.
The larger problem is the fact that there are liberals in the government. There are people who want you enslaved in the government. There are people that do not want you to be free and will work against every liberty that you were guaranteed in the name of compassion, and they increasingly are not the elected government. They are increasingly what I call the perma-government.
Let me ask you guys each a question. Let me ask each of you a question.
We're going to wind this up for 11:30, by the way, so hang in there just a few seconds more.
All right, we'll go to AJ first.
Okay.
Then I want to go to John, then I want to go to Stan. AJ.
Yes.
What do you consider to be your most important liberty?
That's to answer. Self-determination.
You dropping it?
Self-determination.
Yeah. music, and now I'm back in kitchens. But I decided to do school to be a nurse.
All right, you got to
Guys
move to a
breaking
different part in North Dakota here and
Yeah. Being able to
Try
choose
that
my
again.
vocation, choosing my own self-determination. That to me is liberty for me right now, and I understand it's not enough of an answer.
Huh. All right.
All right, John,
Yes.
what do you feel is the most important liberty to you?
Well, I think what is to, and this is probably surprising coming from the liberal that I am, but to be, the ability to achieve success. I think, in a supportive environment, with a safety net, but I believe, in the ability to achieve success in a society.
All right. Stanley?
The most important liberty is economic liberty. If I am at peace and at liberty to earn as much money as I legally can and then determine by myself what to do with the fruits of my labor, then I am at liberty. As soon as someone can take your property against your will and you have no recourse, you're a fool if you think you're at liberty.
Now, John, we lost AJ. I think you're still in there with us, right, John?
I am here.
All right. What are your thoughts on what Stan just said? Because Stan's as conservative as they get.
I missed a little bit of what he said.
Say it again, Stan.
Economic liberty.
It's economic liberty. I am at liberty when I can legally, should be legal, I shouldn't be doing anything that is criminal, but when I can earn as much money as my ability dictates, and once I have earned it, I am the one who decides how it is spent, no one else. Until when anyone can, against my will, take my property and do with it what I would not do, it is crazy to say that I am at liberty.
That's where the fair share thing scares me, because who's to say what the fair share is? In France, it's gone up to 100%. So what kind of liberty do you have there? What kind of incentive do you have to even work? Because the government just keeps getting more bloated, more and more and more.
John?
I'm for people being successful. I do believe, and I know that people are going to disagree with me.
Which
all
is
you
fine.
nice people. But that people who do make more should be taxed at a higher rate.
Why?
I mean, there's because there's a cost to society. I mean, there are people who make far less, but they contribute just as much to society, and they're the one. I mean, the people who are the most successful, I think, they do it often on the backs of people who make far less.
See, I think that's where the government or the media has successfully brainwashed most people as well, because the more affluent in this country pay the bulk of the taxes. I'm not sure I really should find out what the exact percentage is, but that's a total fallacy to say that they don't pay their fair share. They might obviously pay enough money that they're not going to feel it like somebody who makes less. But as far as the bulk of the taxes in this country, I think it's well over like 70 or 80% are paid by, the top 1 or 2%.
The top 5% of earners pay more than 80% of the taxes. But my question would go back to this. John, what is your moral argument for taking more of somebody's money just because they are more successful? What is your moral argument that entitles you to more of someone's money just because they have more than one other person? What is it?
That's a good question. I think that it's society to do so.
Liberty is not about the benefit of society. This country was founded on the basis of individual liberty. It is not the government's concern. It is the individuals who live in community to basically take care of their own welfare. That is how this was designed. So again, I ask, what is the moral argument for saying that the government or anyone else has a moral right to take somebody's property and at an inordinately higher rate than they would from someone else, just because they're actually successful. Now, when someone can actually give me an answer for that lines up with what I understand to be morality, and for me, if you want to deal with morality, you got to pick up that Bible. But if you can give me an answer to that, that's fine. Because God has 10% of everybody, and that's enough to run the church for the last 2,000 years, and Israel for a couple thousand years before that. I have no idea why we got to have a progressive rate now, forever.
Well, it's certainly an excellent point. You know, you're talking about community service and people helping one another. What got me so annoyed seeing President Obama and Chris Christie down at the Jersey Shore today was them, you know, tapping and patting each other on the back about what a great job they did rebuilding the Jersey Shore, when, first of all, it's far from rebuilt, and second of all, the majority of the work that was done down there was done through charity organizations and local community groups. And it's just, you know, everybody's out for their own collective butts and getting, you know, elected in Washington, and politicians, and just by the very nature of their name, they are politicians. That's what they do, and they're full of bullcrap, if you ask me, but that's besides the point. Hey, listen, we're going to thank you. John, I want your homework assignment is to find out about your health care. I want to find out if it's going to be a major problem for you. And have fun with that, because I just revamped mine, and it's costing me 20% more last year and another 20% more this year. So I'm not looking forward to that. Stan Levy, Black Man Thinking, THINKIN.com, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, blackmanthinking.com. And AJ Gaynor, who we've lost, unfortunately, in the way up there in North
I believe,
Dakota.
if I'm not mistaken, where they live in North Dakota, cell service stops at 11:27.
That figures.
I think the cellular towers freeze and they don't work.
And I want to thank Greg for calling in. He was our resident person who knew quite a bit about healthcare that we spoke to in the past as well. So you guys, thanks so much. Time flies when you're having fun already. 11:30 this evening. We'll look forward to next Tuesday with you here on Cowboy Logic Radio. Find us on the web at cowboylogic.us. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. I'm Donna Fiducia, along with Don Neuen. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I got to say something.
Yep.
Hey, first of all, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. We're looking forward to the next time we can do one of these round tables, because, quite frankly, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I really thought it was great.
And I really do appreciate you, John, for kind of throwing yourself into the fire here. But
not a problem.
It's awesome that you're open-minded, and it just drives me nuts on my Facebook page when everybody just flings, you know, obscenities with absolutely no facts. And
we're going to rename you John Balls of Steel Bergquist.
I like that.
What, Stan? What did you say?
Can I tell John how much I appreciate him?
Yes.
John, thank you.
I appreciate you and your points of view, Stan. It's definitely an education, and I like to open myself up to that, because it's not a point of view I get to hear all the time. So
definitely not in Connecticut. You don't hear it in Connecticut. You didn't hear it in New Jersey, New York too much either, especially after what Chris Christie's doing.
Guys, we appreciate you a lot. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right, now, here's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, every night or every time we do a show, every week, we play a song.
Yep.
Normally it's of a new artist. It might be a song that's not been released. But this week I'm going to play a song that was recorded by a good friend of mine. His name is Mark Pertain. I don't know if he's listening tonight, but this is a country artist that I have had the honor of working with starting back in, I believe, the early 90s.
He has a wonderful voice.
Yep.
Really
awesome
great
voice. And the song that I'm about to play for you is a tune that was that we recorded with a bunch of local Atlanta players, members of the band Cadillac Ranch that we all played with back in the 90s.
You played bass?
I played bass on this. And we had a gentleman by the name of Dean Daughtry, who is the keyboard player for the Atlanta Rhythm section, that also played on this record. But we made this record back in the 90s,
And it's a song that's very fitting for those of us that live in flyover country. At any rate, the name of the song is Am I Too Square? And Mark Pertain, I don't know his website off the top of my head. I would say it's probably markpertain.com. But if you go to YouTube and do a search for Mark Pertain, Pertain, it'll come up with 40, 50 videos that he's created of a lot of the material that he's recorded. Stunning vocalist.
Which you also used for my video of my horseback riding, my barrel racing.
That's right. So without any further ado, guys, this is Mark Pertain singing Am I Too Square?
Some of my friends drive fancy cars, love symphonies and modern art, and they wouldn't be caught dead without a manicure. Playing their lives around a country club, golf lessons, Sunday brunch, collect gossip and antique furniture. Well, I drive a truck and wear blue jeans, and my ideal is social scene, smoking barbecue on an outdoor pit. Am I too square for your circle of friends? Too down to earth for the world you're living in? I like a rodeo, a do-si-do, the Andy Griffith TV show, homemade wine knitters off the vine, baseball, apple pie. Am I too square for your circle of friends? Would your friends watch a tractor pull or a young cowboy ride a raging bull? Just two of the things I love to do. Is country on their radio? Would they watch an opera show? Do they know how to use a fishing pole? We live in two different worlds, one's in boots and one's in pearls. I got to know where I fit in. Am I too square for your circle of friends? Too down to earth for the world you're living in? I like a rodeo, a do-si-do, the Andy Griffith TV show, homemade wine knitters off the vine, baseball, apple pie. Am I too square for your circle of friends? Gather round, boys. I like a rodeo, a do-si-do, the Andy Griffith TV show, homemade wine knitters off the vine, baseball, apple pie. Am I too square for your circle of friends? I don't care if I'm too square, 'cause I don't care for your circle of friends.
Cowboy Logic Radio. Unfiltered, politically incorrect, common sense. You've been listening to Cowboy Logic Radio, a division of Donna Fiducia Production.